All right, so let's dive in here, y'all, because we have got a lot to cover with our session here today. Remember, last week we talked all about reframing our perceptions of the past. And so when you think about like the mindset work of burnout recovery, it really comes down to three different things. Number one is exactly like we talked about last week, being able to reframe our internal perceptions of the past so that they don't have such a grip on us going forward. What we're going to talk about the second part today is anchoring the desired inner state, meaning that your current emotional inner state of being is causing your brain's filter system to work in a particular way to only filter in information that fits with your own internal your inner state of being at that point in time. So that's kind of the second step, is being able to have better control over our current inner state of being. And then the third one that we're going to focus on next week is all about future self simulation. So being able to prime your brain, setting up literally the neural networks and the firing that happens between neurons in your brain to prime your brain for your desired future. So that way your brain has already got the wiring ready to go when the opportunity presents itself. So some exciting stuff coming up next week. This week, we are focused, like I mentioned, all around anchoring the desired inner state. We'll go through a little bit of the nerdy brain science here. And then similar to last week, I've got a little guided visualization for us. We'll do a little meditation to get us grounded and get tuned in with the subconscious. So get excited for that. If you have your headphones, make sure you have those ready for later today as well. First of all, let's kind of focus on the nerdy brain science part of it first, though, right? Is that, like I mentioned before, what's really important to remember here is that whatever your inner state of being is right now, whether you are feeling stressed, whether you are feeling peace and calm, right? Whatever side of the emotional spectrum that you're on is influencing that filtering system that we talked about in week one, that RAS, reticular activating system. Because remember, your unconscious brain that is trying to process everything happening out here, right? Your unconscious brain, which is limitless, is hit with about 25 million bits of data every single second. But the conscious thinking brain can only process 134 of those bits of data per second. And the RAS is what then filters that information to say, okay, out of these 25 million bits right now, which 134 are we going to surface up to Peter's brain for meaning making and reality creation, right? And so then you ask yourself, well, how does the RAS determine how to filter that information? It's highly, highly influenced by our subconscious beliefs, and just as much influenced in the current moment by your internal state of being. Good example of this is like those of you that follow me on TikTok, you know, I post a lot on there. There are certain days when I'm feeling off that I'm just like, I literally can't even think about posting something on TikTok right now. My internal state of being prevents me from taking the actions that I would normally take. So your internal state of being sends those directions to the unconscious, that then sends the directions to the RAS, the filtering system, to say, filter in some information that fits with my current pattern right now, my current pattern of thinking, whether it's stress-based thinking or, you know, worst case scenario thinking. You're then training your mind to perceive your current situation based on an existing pattern in your mind, which then, if we don't catch it on time, influences not only our future-based sabotaging thoughts, but also those emotions. And emotions are always running supreme. So this is the reacting feedback loop that most of us, I'll be honest with you, most of us are in this state of being most of the time, every single day. It's a natural state of being. And a lot of this comes down to this fascinating concept in psychology referred to bottom up versus top down attention. So let me kind of explain this to you in a little bit more detail. Bottom up attention. So much of our energy today is demanded of us to simply be able to react to our outside environment. There's so much information overload, so much stimulus overload coming at us from our outside that we create this unconscious habit of bottom up attention, where when the phone rings or vibrates, when the email gets received, right? Whatever outside stimulus triggers our attention then determines our response, our mood. And we talked about this a little bit last week about the whole analogy of like the fleas in the jar, right? Just like the lid on the jar triggers a response to only jump as high as the lid, we fall into a reacting feedback loop where we're just going through the motions based on what we believe to be true up until now, where all of our thoughts are driven by all of our subconscious past. This is reacting mode. So what's the opposite? There is an alternative, and that is top-down thinking. This is intentional thinking. It's not driven from outside circumstances, but rather from within, right? What do I mean by that? Well, instead of us subconsciously reacting to an emotion from our outside stimulus, top-down starts with a conscious intentional thought. And that conscious intentional thought then influences our emotions, influences our actions and behaviors, our habits. So here's what we're really going for with this, right? Is promoting the thoughts that will create the desired emotions and all of the other things that come along with that, the associated hormone releases. This is where mindset change really happens, right? When we stop reacting and get ourselves out of bottom-up attention mode and start getting ourselves into creating mode with top-down attention. So just to kind of, again, put it in a nutshell, the reacting mode, bottom up, it's an emotional reaction, reactionary trigger response, right? Whatever the emotion is determines our trigger and our response to it. Creating top-up attention mode, on the other hand, is intentional thoughts. Our intentional conscious thoughts trigger a response in our body. So the creating loop then, again, is basically just the reverse. Instead of the emotion influencing everything, it's the conscious thought that influences everything, creating a different feedback loop in our brains that gets us out of that chronic destructive thinking. So when we think about this in terms of like manifestation and mindset, right? We always think about manifestation like, oh, I want this thing in my life. I want more money. I want a bigger house. I want a better job. And the thing is, you're not going to be able to have the outcome right away, right? But the amazing thing is that you can have the desired, and I'll even go a step further than this, required inner state in an instant. And once you align with that inner state, then the outcome becomes a magnet to your inner state. The RAS says, oh, you're feeling a different way. Let me filter in new information that fits with that emotion, with that inner state of being. So in neurolinguistic programming, we talk a lot about inner state, right? Internal representations, inner state of being. Here's kind of the brain sciencey way to understand that. When you think about your inner state of being, think about it like this. It's the chemistry of the brain and body that becomes a translation of the mindset of beliefs that are creating your current perception of reality. To illustrate this, let's take the example that I know a lot of us as millennials have been holding on to for most of our lives, is that I'm not enough unless I'm constantly producing and achieving. This is the subconscious beliefs that keep us addicted to stress, that keep us going on the hamster wheel, even though our bodies are, hitting rock bottom, right? When we have that belief in place, the chemistry of the brain and the body is a translation of that belief. Cortisol and adrenaline are constantly flowing through our body to the point where so many of us are now hitting adrenal fatigue. Late stage diagnosis is ADD, ADHD, right? Because our body chemistry has literally changed over time based on the subconscious beliefs. So all that to say is that the outcome has to match the state. Our brain, our mind has to be programmed first to know what it would feel like when we achieve our desired reality before the actual experience of it, before the outcome. Because your brain only knows how to make meaning from that which fits into the current mindset. Okay, your brain can only learn from whatever we attend to at any given moment up until now. So not to sound all like, mushy gushy goo, but like when we talk about happiness, happiness is not a result of an experience. Happiness is an inner state of being that comes from sustained balance and chemistry in the body, right? It's this whole idea that like, if I get XYZ, then I will be happy. That's a short-term gain. That's why lottery winners, when they win the lottery, they end up going poor a few years later and miserable again because they were dependent on this short-term gain to make them happy versus just, is your internal state of being happiness? Are you fostering that on a daily basis? The brain can only make meaning out of that which fits with what we believe to be true. There's the key word, our beliefs. We can only make conscious meaning from that which fits with our mindset. So if you're like, Peter, what are you talking about? Good way to think about this, the placebo effect. If you believe it's true, then it's possible, and the brain acts on that. There was a study done back in, I think, the 1980s. I don't want to give you the wrong date, but basically, there was a bunch of these chemo patients, and 30% of people that were getting the placebo for the chemo, they weren't getting the real medicine. 30% of those people that got the placebo thought they were getting chemo and lost their hair. The brain operates based on our beliefs. When the brain accepts something as true, it acts upon it as if it's true. So again, when we think about like manifestation, right? The outcome is dependent on our state of mind. You can't have this internal feedback loop trying to resonate with a positive energetic frequency or a positive energetic outcome, right? In order to achieve your outcome that's positive, you first of all have to foster the positive internal feedback loop, the positive inner state of being. So the question becomes then identifying how we want to feel. How, not necessarily what we want, but how do we want to feel? And then putting ourselves into experiences that foster that desired emotion. If you want to feel calm and serene, go take yourself for a hike in nature for an hour or two. But here's the thing about all of us these days, right? We're like, Peter, I don't have time to go for a hike. Peter, I'm too tired to even go for a hike. That seems like an impossibility for me. If that's you, fret not, my friends, because guess what? The same exact region of the brain lights up whether we're experiencing something or remembering it. The bad side of this is with trauma. Anytime if we have PTSD, for example, anything that we experience that's even remotely associated to that past trauma, our brain relives that same experience as if it's happening right now in reality. The good side of this, though, we can use it to our benefit too, because if we have past memories of calm and peace and serenity, we can remember and recall those past memories and replay them in our mind's eye to activate those same neural networks that got activated at the time of the real experience. So I share about this in the course as well. You all will continue to have access to the reprogramming content in the next 2 weeks here as well. But again, this same neural network lights up if we're remembering versus experiencing. So a good example of this is like those certain 90s songs that take us right back to the gym floor in middle school. Or maybe it is a certain scent. I know for me, anytime that I smell freshly baked bread, I go right back to my grandma's farm kitchen table because she was always baking something in the oven. So the idea here is, right, is that usually what happens is an external stimulus from sounds, especially smells, scents, anything like that. The external stimulus triggers an internal emotion in us, but it can also go both ways. So emotional triggers work by an association. That association could be a physical sensation and a previously related experience, right? But we can also create a different trigger by associating a thought to a sensation. It's like kind of the reverse of that, right? Where we train our brains to respond to a given stimulus with intentional thoughts and emotions. And this gets us into our next NLP strategy this week. It is called anchoring. And again, the whole idea behind anchoring is being able to create your desired inner state, even if you're not currently feeling that right now. So what I'm going to do here next is I'm going to walk you through, because again, y'all, my goal here is not to be your therapist. I am not a licensed therapist. I am an NLP coach, right? So my goal here is not for you to just be guided through these. My goal is to allow you to learn it yourself, right? Learn the strategy, learn the brain science behind it yourself so that you can create sustainable habits that you can use on yourself. So I'm going to walk through the different components here. And then obviously we'll try this out as well today with a guided one for peace and serenity. First step in anchoring is you got to get clear, get specific and positive about What emotion do you want more of in your life? Okay, think about that right now to yourself. If that's tough for you to think about and you're like, I don't even know anymore, Peter, I've been stressed for so long, I don't even know. Ask yourself instead, how would you need to feel in order to have the thing that you want? If you want more money in your life, if you want more work-life balance, how would you need to feel to have that thing? Well, I might need to feel more peace. I might need to feel more serenity. I might need to feel more abundant. Identify the feeling that's desired and required. Again, the external outcome has to match the internal state. If you're not in alignment, you can get into alignment. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to leverage, again, you can put yourself into an experience like going hiking or something like that. But if that's not an option, then you can put yourself into a mental experience, a mental movie of your past related to that same emotion. Again, just like we all have that song that reminds us of certain events or a smell or a certain food that takes you back to your childhood, these are the things we're talking about. Is what are the experiences, what are the memories from your past that made you feel that desired emotion? Okay, it's all about a mind-body connection here. And, don't feel like you have to perfect this. Maybe you choose one memory to work with at first. And then maybe as you gain more access to your subconscious, you're like, oh, I have a better memory of this emotion, right? So you can always change it. Third step is to magnify the crap out of this experience. Magnify the experience and, even more importantly, the emotions. So as you are creating and recalling that memory of the past where you felt calm and peace, for example, include every single sense possible to activate more of those neural networks and fire more of those neuron networks, right? If you're just imagining what you saw in that experience, that's only one connection. If you imagine what you saw, you smelled, you heard, you sensed, you felt, you're now creating multiple connections, allowing that network in your brain to fire off stronger. Neurons that fire together, wire together, even if we're just remembering. So magnify the crap out of it, okay? Here's where the fun part comes into play. At the peak of the emotion, okay, at the peak of that emotional experience, that you recalling it, you're going to apply a physical stimulus to a part of your body. For example, today we're going to use a simple one where you just press together your thumb and forefinger. You could also use your knuckles. Just a kind of key thing to keep in mind. What you don't want to use is a part of your body that usually gets stimulated otherwise. So, for example, you don't want to use like a hug to yourself. If other people are hugging you all the time, right? You don't want to also then create an additional physical anchor and an emotional anchor to a hug. There's already an emotional anchor to that, right? So, whatever body part that you choose, just make sure it's one that is not already associated to an emotion for you by default. Cool, cool. All right, so then after you've identified, again, that physical stimulus, you're going to use that as an anchor. And then again, could be something as simple as, touching your thumb, knuckle, something that's easily accessible. Other thing to remember here too, anchors don't have to be physical. They can also be a sound anchor, like, listening to your favorite pump up jam to make you feel motivated. That's a sound anchor. A visual, like an affirmation sign. Gustatory, your sense of taste, like when you chew gum is a way to satisfy yourself when you're quitting smoking. Those are all anchors that you're utilizing different senses of yours, right? The reason why usually we choose a physical one is because you're always going to have access to your knuckle. You're always going to have access to your thumb, right? So that's the idea behind that. Finally, the idea is to repeat an experiment. Because again, neurons that fire together wire together. And so by leveraging those previous positive states that you felt before in order to, recreate that desired state when you're presented with a challenge is what we're going for here. You're leveraging your internal perception of a past event to program that same internal state with your current internal representations. This is where, the science of the mind gets a little bit crazy. But again, let's say that, you try using your anchor for 10 days straight. and you're like, gosh, I'm still not noticing any effects, right? Because again, you got to wire this first. It's not going to happen right away. Once you begin to wire it stronger and stronger, if you're still not feeling the effects of it, it could potentially be that you've chosen a memory that doesn't have a high enough of an emotional association. So just a hot tip there for you as well is that if you're finding that a physical anchor is not working as well for you, you may need to revisit the original memory that you're using to create that anchor. Cool. So I'm going to give you a few tips about that as we dive along. And then, of course, you're going to have access to the course materials for all of these strategies as well. But right now, we're going to go ahead and move into a little bit of a guided visualization, or I should say guided meditation and then visualization. So make sure you put your headphones in, find somewhere nice and comfy. I'll get a drink of water because I've been recording course materials all day and my throat's a little dry. We're going to start off with a guided meditation, a grounding meditation specifically. And so I'll walk you through that. It'll be about 7 minutes or so. And then we'll transition directly over from there into a guided visualization for anchoring. Okay. One thing that you can do right now as you're just relaxing before we dive into a grounding meditation is just start allowing your mind to wander to some of those experiences from your past where maybe you have felt calm, where you have felt at ease, where stress hasn't been ruling your life. What have been those experiences and memories for you? Just allow your mind to kind of wander for now as we get started here. All right. So as you're relaxing, just go ahead and take a few deep breaths and just allow your eyes to close. Deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. I want you to imagine yourself standing barefoot on soft, cool earth in a peaceful forest. The air is fresh. The forest is alive with the gentle sounds of nature. Take a few deep breaths. And just enjoy the freshness that surrounds you. As you stand there, visualize roots extending from the soles of your feet, reaching down into the earth beneath you. These roots are strong and reach far and wide beneath the forest floor. Picture these roots pushing down deeper and deeper, effortlessly penetrating the layers of soil and rock. With each breath, they go further, connecting you to the very core of the Earth's energy. Feel the stability and support that comes from this deep connection to the Earth. You're grounded and secure, just like the trees around you. Notice how safe and secure you feel from any outside elements. Deep breaths. Now, shift your focus upwards and imagine a beam of radiant white light descending down from the sky, down through the crown of your head and into your body. This light is pure and filled with the most positive, healing energy. As this light enters your body, it mingles with the rest of your energy, filling you with a sense of tranquility, clarity. You're now connected to the boundless energy of the universe above and the safety and security of the earth below. Take a moment to feel the harmony and peace of this dual connection. You are now a bridge between Earth's grounding energy below and the universe's expansive energy above. Any stress, tension, or worries you've been carrying begin to dissolve, flowing down your roots into the ground, while new, fresh energy enters through the bright beam of light above. You're grounded, supported, and open to the infinite possibilities that exist for you. Now, deep breath in. As you exhale, I'm going to ask you to bring to mind that memory from the past. The memory from your past where you experienced a deep sense of peace and calm. It could be a moment in nature, a cherished time with loved ones, or any memory where you truly felt serene. Go ahead and choose the memory now that resonates with you most. As you visualize this memory, allow all the details to come into focus. See the colors, hear the sounds, feel the sensations associated with this peaceful moment, and immerse yourself fully in this memory. As you remember this experience, make it bigger and brighter in your mind. Imagine yourself stepping into that memory. Feel the details surrounding you. Take your time to immerse yourself fully in this peaceful moment. The more vividly you can recall it, the stronger your anchor will be. So I'll give you a moment now to build that mental movie in your mind. Now I want you to identify the peak of the emotion within this memory. The moment when you felt the most profound sense of peace and calm. It could be a specific scene or image, or a particular sensation, or a combination of things. As you pinpoint this moment, replay just that specific scene in your mind and really intensify this feeling of peace. Imagine it expanding and enveloping your entire being. Feel it radiating from your heart and flowing through every cell of your body. You may feel some tingling. You may feel other emotions coming up. Just allow it to be. As you continue to hold this memory in your mind, reaching that peak of the emotion, the moment of greatest peace and calm, feeling that emotion intensify with you, now I want you to press your thumb and your forefinger together gently as you hold on to this peak of peace and calm. This is your physical anchor. It's a simple touch that will help you access this feeling whenever you need it. As you do this, imagine you are locking in that feeling of peace and calm, creating a connection between that physical anchor and this positive emotion. Just let it wash over you. And as you press your thumb and forefinger together again, I want you to say to yourself, I am calm and I am at peace. My mind and body are in perfect harmony. Realize now that you can access this feeling of peace and calm whenever you want. Say to yourself right now, it's easy for me to find tranquility within myself. Peace is within me. Just imagine how this newfound sense of peace and calm will positively impact your life. See yourself handling stressful situations with more ease and grace, knowing that you always have this inner sanctuary to return to. And as you repeatedly press your thumb and forefinger together, reinforcing that anchor, repeat in your mind, every day, in every way, I am becoming more and more peaceful and serene. Every day, in every way, I am becoming more and more peaceful and serene. As you let this wash over you, take a few more deep breaths in. As you exhale, allow yourself to soak into this feeling of peace and calm more and more with each exhale. Now gently start to return to the present moment. Take a final deep breath. Gently allow your eyes to open. Feeling refreshed, centered, and knowing that this anchor is always literally at your fingertips, ready to bring you peace when you need it. Whenever you need to experience more of that peace and calm, simply press together that forefinger and thumb and just notice how that soothing feeling will just wash over you again. And it'll get stronger and stronger with more and more repetition, right? Allowing you to be able to face challenges with more grace and tranquility. Come on back to the present. And again, I just want to remind y'all too that this is going to take repetition. If you didn't feel that emotion in you this time, don't beat yourself up. That is okay. Because it's going to take repeated recalling of that same memory and that same desired emotion for your brain to remember and create and re-strengthen that neural network associated with it. Okay, and again, if you find that it's not working or it's not as strong anymore in the future, just go back to that original memory. Find that peak again. Maybe the emotional peak has changed, right? To train, you got to train your brain for how you want to feel. Okay, or maybe even choosing, again, a different, entirely new memory to associate with the anchor. Maybe a stronger memory with a stronger emotional connection, right? The idea is, again, each time that you do this with the physical anchor, the positive emotion will flow into your awareness and allow you to kind of experience that sense of peace and calm or whatever positive emotion that you choose. So hopefully that was helpful for you all. The one thing I'm just going to say here too, just as a repetition, just going back to this slide again, is again, your brain can't tell the difference between recalling something, remembering something, or experiencing something. So when you begin to leverage that knowledge of how our minds work, you can make it work for you in really, really powerful ways. So next steps here, y'all, as we begin to get towards the end of week 3. I'm sorry, my music is still going. Next week, believe it or not, is our final week. I'll have some exciting different things to share out with you there as well. Remember, next week is all about future self-simulation. We'll have one last guided visualization with that as well. The course materials, if you guys are, everybody's busy, right? So if you are falling behind on the course materials, or if you haven't had a chance to get in there, don't beat yourself up. You all will continue to have access to those materials even after our 4 weeks together. So fret not. But I will just say too, though, like the course materials, I can't iterate this enough to people that I work with, is that I'm not here to do the changes for you. You are literally the only person that can change yourself. You are the only person that can rewire your mind and reprogram your brain, right? I can only give you the teachings. I can only be your teacher along the way. So just make sure that with those course materials, by all means, take your time. But there's powerful stuff in there, y'all. It's the same stuff that I learned in my own journey that I am so passionate about now. So please do yourself a favor. If you haven't had a chance yet to get into the course materials, make some time over the next even several weeks once you can kind of catch a break to dive into those as well. Okay. In the meantime, I will stick on in case y'all have any questions for me. But otherwise, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your Wednesday Eve, and hope to see you all next week for week 4. Get ready.